All right.
Very excited.
Yes, welcome, folks, to the Doc Bryant Show. And I have a very special guest today, my very good friend, Nate Hale. Give it up for Nate Hale, ladies and gentlemen. No, I don't have the sound effects buttons yet, but
Oh, people are
I
cheering.
brought, yes, people are cheering in my head. Um, but I brought Nate on because he and I have known each other all our lives. And uh, we play off each other really well, and we have similar, uh, fairly similar viewpoints. Sometimes not so much, you know. He's a little bit more tolerant than I am about certain things. Uh, so, but
That's sad. That's so sad.
well, I'm a grumpy old man, and I'm happy that way. It's just like the and here I'm going to digress as I frequently do. So we these cats have adopted us, right? I don't know if you heard about this.
Mm-mm.
Three cats adopted us. At first, it was just two. They show up out of nowhere, a couple of weeks ago, and the boys bring out some water for them, and uh, and they're like, "Oh, look, cats!" And I'm like, "Oh, look, cats," because that's how we got the last bunch. Um, Actually, I think that's how we've gotten every cat uh, that I've ever owned, anyway. And uh, and through the course of everything, later on that day, the two cats come back into the backyard because they gave them water. Oh, no, but that wasn't. So my wife gets some of my canned chicken and put it out for them to eat. So anyway, the two cats come back later on in the evening, followed by a third.
Uh-huh.
They're triplet black cats. They're gorgeous, triplet black cats. But anyway, so in talking to her, I was like, yeah, they're cute and all that kind of stuff, but I'm still a grumpy old man. So don't, you know, anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a grumpy old man, and I'm happy to be a grumpy old man, and I try to maintain that reputation. So there you go. Anyway, so you found a story that you wanted to take a look at that was about a 4-year-old. The police were called because a 4-year-old would not wear his or her mask in school, and of course, this is in California.
Yes. Big shock there. I haven't actually done a whole lot of research in the story. Just caught my eye today, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic to go over. Apparently, there's some video on it as well that I'd like to look into. But the for me, this just the topic in general, as far as the overall topic of this being something that happens now. As I discussed with you earlier, my guess is, from what I've seen, um, because conservative or liberal, it doesn't matter. People are going to write articles. They're going to put something out there that's a little bit maybe not exactly the case. So the police actually being called on a 4-year-old, I highly doubt it. My guess is that it was a police officer that actually works there on campus that was there to handle the situation when the father came to pick up the child. But regardless of all that, the whole bottom line is apparently this child went to school for the first time on Wednesday and had never been required to wear a mask in well, I mean he's 4, so the age he was what 2 when the pandemic started, so he hasn't been in
Yeah,
any schools or anything like that. He hasn't had to deal with any of that stuff, and if his parents were anything like me and my wife have been, we're not gonna we haven't made our children wear masks anywhere,
yeah,
uh, and so this was something new to him. He wasn't taking well to it and apparently had a very bad day on Wednesday. Well, Thursday the parent is called and told, come get your kid because he's not wearing his mask, and uh, we can't have that. And from again, I don't want to go into too much detail. I don't want to be called a liar on it. Again, this just kind of caught my eye and I was perusing it. The point being that, from what I understand and what I've briefly read, is that even in that area, most of the schools have dropped the mask mandate. And as you and I
Mhm.
discussed earlier, based on the new CDC guidelines, apparently even if you have COVID, just go about your normal life because everything's going to be fine. So, masks pointless at this point. So I honestly have no idea why there are any schools still pushing this. But to the point where you have a 4-year-old child that you are, I mean, kids are ridiculously impressionable, and they remember things like this. This is going to stick with this child, as far as, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Daddy, why is the school not letting me be here? Why is there a police officer that is escorting us out of the building? These things so ridiculously unnecessary, and so I have a 4-year-old child, and so I can only, when I read this, and that's why this caught my eye, is the fact that I can't even fathom, can't imagine someone's this situation happening with me and my little 4-year-old, who would have no clue what's going on. And I mean, I'm lucky. My kids seem pretty bloody resilient, and then, I mean, my child would probably be like, oh, whatever. But that's not always the case. And I don't understand why this is still there. And I definitely wanted to talk with you about it, as far as considering all the things that have come to light, the new CDC garbage. Why? How could something like this happen?
Okay. Well, as you pointed out, the CDC did finally cave, and they admitted just about everything shy of criminal liability. So, and it was funny. It's been funny to watch, because I think it was last month, the month before, Fauci showed up and he was being interviewed somewhere, and he was talking about how the numbers had been fixed. Except he was surprised by the whole thing, because what they were doing in the hospitals was they were recording everybody who was positive with COVID, and if anybody died and they were positive for COVID, they were calling it cause of
COVID
death
death,
was COVID death. And well, you know, we just found out about
which is
this.
exactly what we've been screaming from day one.
Well, the thing is that both myself and my wife, being nurses, we and her still being in a hospital, me, of course, having lots of friends in a hospital, we knew what was going on. They were instructed to do this. This was stuff that they were told to do. These were instructions that they received, and the way that it worked, the way that the scam worked, because they had to inflate the numbers to make it look like this was a huge, horrible pandemic where people were dying and so on and so forth, despite the fact that the numbers clearly pointed out that it had a roughly 98 to 99% survival rate. They had to make it look bad so that they could crack down, so that they could justify the lockdowns and so forth. And so the instructions were, if anybody dies and they're positive for COVID, and it
COVID
could,
death.
yeah, it could possibly be COVID, then it's a COVID death. And another way that they kind of coerced the hospitals into this was by
Financial means,
the
wasn't it?
CDC, the CDC saying no more elective surgeries. Well, the hospital business, the moneymaker in a hospital, the moneymaker is the operating room. That is where the money is made, and elective surgeries are where the money is made. Because in a hospital, it has so many departments that hemorrhage money. The two biggest being emergency and labor and delivery, because those are the places where people can just show up and you have to treat them, and maybe they pay, maybe they don't. And so that they hemorrhage money hugely. So elective surgeries are where you make your money. Well, if you've got this horrible, terrible pandemic, we've got to shut those elective surgeries down, because the fewer people in the hospital, the better, right? So now the hospitals don't have a way to make money. So now they have to become dependent on the government. And if the government tells you, for every COVID death you have, we will pay you a subsidy, guess what?
Yeah.
Every freaking death that they have is going to be blamed on COVID if they possibly can do it. And so that's how it turned out. That's how
Well,
they, yeah.
that's the nature of the beast. For him to be surprised that that would potentially happen is just ridiculous. Because anytime you set up a situation like that where somebody's going to profit on doing things a certain way, well, guess which way they're going to do it. Especially if you handcuff their other options. But that's one of the things we were talking about when this way back when this started, is that if there are people dying in hospitals, and there always are, always going to be, people are dying in hospitals, but the government says, hey, just to let you know, if somebody in this hospital does actually die of this one thing over here, then we're going to give you money for it. All of a sudden, those numbers start getting boosted, and all the numbers start dropping. Like the amount of flu cases that plummeted. It's like nobody had the flu in the past 2 years. There was no flu. Everybody had COVID. There was no flu. And deaths, the death rates of every other form, every other way you could possibly die, dramatically dropped. COVID shot through the roof, but everything else, no, not so much. Everybody was ridiculously healthy in every other way. And I mean, hell, even the reports of people in car accidents, fatal car accidents, but they were tested because they're like, hey, let's test them, see if they got COVID. Boom, they got COVID. Hey, COVID complication, So
Maybe he started coughing when he was driving, and that's why he got hit by that pickup truck.
Right, and I understand that, and I understand, and from what I just saw a second ago, I don't know how true it is. I guess Fauci, after the midterms, is going to leave. That is most likely, I'm assuming, because of the tsunami that is going to hit Congress. But okay, so they did what they did. They pulled the stunt that they pulled successfully, and now it's coming back to bite them. But again, and I know it's California, I get it, but mask mandate in a school, kicking a 4-year-old child out of school for not wearing a mask. At this point, because the game, from what I can tell, I mean, there's still a good percentage of the population that still think that all this was real. So they're going to hold on to this no matter what evidence you show them. But for the most part, the jig is up. And so what's the deal? Is it?
I'm going to say that those people who actually still buy into the whole COVID thing is a very small portion of society. I think that the people that we still see walking around with their masks on, despite the fact that bodies are not being stacked up in the streets like cordwood, and these people are still wearing their masks because, it's a terribly deadly virus, even though all these people aren't dead walking around me. Those people are still doing it because they don't want to admit they're wrong. Now, maybe there are some that the science says this, science trademark says this. But what's going on in California, what Hochul is trying to do in New York, she's trying to pull the same kind of crap in New York, proves that this was never about a virus. And this is what, healthcare professionals, some healthcare professionals like myself, have been saying from the jump. Like when they started talking about wearing a mask, and I'm like, it's a virus. Okay, there's not a mask short of a respirator. There's not a mask that's going to stop a virus.
Don't get me started with all the arguments I've seen online about that. Everybody talking about how when you go into surgery, the surgeon wears a mask, and that's like that's
to keep him from sneezing on you.
That is so completely different. I think one of the funniest things I saw is when this came around, is actually a liberal that put this video out because he was trying to say that masks aren't enough, and so he was in the cold
Oh, yeah.
and he put a
Yeah.
mask on and he exhaled and you see all of his breath in the air and he's like, "See, that's COVID." And it's like, uh-huh, that's what that is. And so he was got one of those plastic shields and he exhaled and it didn't go as far and it kind of hit the shield and he's like, "See, this is why we all need to be wearing plastic masks." And I'm like, no, you're heading in the right direction, but you're still not there. But
Well,
again,
and they completely ignored the fact that we all as human beings have this thing called an immune system that is designed for this kind of stuff. But the like you pointed out, the CDC came out and they mea culpa, yeah, we were wrong, and they were pretending like, well, we didn't know we were wrong, but that's baloney. Everybody knew they were wrong. Everybody knew it was, and every professional knew that this was garbage. The masks, the 6 foot apart, the whole thing was garbage. It was baloney. It was about control. That's all it was about. Now, like the CDC comes out, well, the masks didn't work and well, we didn't know at the time. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you
oops.
did, because Fauci came out and he was flip-flopping on that multiple times before he finally said masks, and then 2 masks, and just ridiculous, crazy stuff. You couldn't make this stuff up.
It's like,
Like
you really don't want to
20
get her
years
pregnant? Wear
ago,
2 condoms.
yeah, 20 years ago, this would have been a comedy routine. This would have been on Saturday Night Live 20 years ago. They would have been making fun of this. Okay. So, and then the whole thing with the vaccine, they even came out and said, yeah, well, the vaccines don't work. That they don't stop you from getting it. They don't stop you from spreading it. So, what are the vaccines about? The masks are about control. The masks are muzzles. They are this generation's uh, uh, Uden Star, Nazi Star of David, except it works the opposite
The
way.
opposite, right?
You're a follower, you're a compliant slave if you wear the mask that we tell you to wear and when we tell you to wear it. That's all it's about now. It has nothing to do with stopping the transmission of, and the whole thing coming from the operating room. The whole thing with the masks in the operating room, we're not wearing those to protect the patient from getting a cold. We're wearing those because the patient is open and the inside of the patient is sterile. And we don't want to sneeze into that. Okay. So if somebody sneezes or somebody accidentally spits or something, because, if you're like in Alabama and the surgeon's chewing some backy, you don't want him. But I kid a little bit. I kid. But
You're not going to get any email for that.
yeah, I don't get any email anyway. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's Doc Bryant Show at zohomail.com. Any hate mail, send it right there. I will reply to hate mail. I'll reply to any mail at this point. But yeah, so it's all about control. And what they're trying to do is they are targeting the children and they are teaching the children, wear your mask, be compliant. Don't do it because it makes sense. Don't do it because there's any reason behind it. Do it because the government told you to do it. The Soviet Union was famous for this kind of thing. They would put out a talking point that everybody knew was just flat, crazy, ridiculous. But if you didn't toe the line, if you didn't repeat it, regardless of how stupid and crazy it was, then they knew that you were a subversive and they disappear you. And that's all this is about in California and New York, maybe in other jurisdictions I don't know about. I know Hochul was trying to do it, although she's getting a lot of pushback. And it doesn't surprise me that Newsom is doing this, and he's going to be able to a lot easier because all of the intelligent people are leaving California. And so the people who are left are going to be the compliant ones. But that's why we
All
want
right,
you
I
kids
was
to
just
learn.
confused because even after everything, and it's it seems like it's dying down. I mean, Lord knows what's going to happen in the future, because it seems like every time, for whatever reason, they manufacture a spike, and it's like, oh wait, masks again. And I have actually seen the effect of that, even where I'm at, where I'm going to the store and nobody's wearing a mask. You might see one or two people wearing masks, and then all of a sudden the news reports, oh, there's been a huge spike, and then you go to the store and everybody's wearing masks again. And I'm like, for the love of all that's holy. I mean, it's unbelievable how many people are sheep, and you refuse to question what you're told, which is what I really don't understand, because so many of these people, these same people, were the ones that are constantly like, don't trust the government, don't trust them, they're lying to you, they do this. And now these exact same people are like, why aren't you trusting what the government is telling you? The science is on their side, and blah, blah. I'm like, because of all of your vast knowledge of the science, because I'm watching some of the things that these people are posting, and it's like, wow, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. Not that I'm any type of expert, but the line of garbage that some of these people spew. And what's really funny is some of the I've seen some conservative people out there that may have pretended to be liberals that will say some ridiculously stupid thing just to see what happens, and
Yes.
you see this huge amount of liberal sheep start just reposting the same stuff, and they're like, okay, that was satire, you must have missed it, that was a joke, and you took a big old bite of it. But I don't know, it caught me off guard. The thing that really, I mean, I see something like that and I just blow by it, and it's like, yeah, well, the fact that it was a 3-year-old kid, so that hits home for me. But also it's still a mask issue, and it's like, man, I thought we were done with this. So that's why I was a little bit confused onto why that's even still a thing anywhere, even California.
Yeah. Well, you asked what could possibly happen in the future. Let me show you. You're gonna love this.
Hunger Games, isn't it? It's gonna be Hunger Games.
Let's see here. Here we go. This from Breitbart. Schools, colleges prep for monkeypox outbreaks as
Oh
autumn nears.
no!
Not kidding. Not kidding. Check that. This is the one I was telling you about. All right. Just hang on for the ride.
Oh, okay. I've already got a ton of things to say, but I'll keep my mouth shut because
Okay.
go.
Okay. Now, first we have this the lead in right here. Elementary schools and universities have been preparing for potential monkeypox outbreaks as the summer closes and autumn sessions near. Now,
Elementary schools. That's what pops out in that sentence for me. Elementary schools.
yes, exactly. So, all right.
And apparently some veterinary clinics, from what I hear.
So, from an actual science point of view, as a healthcare professional, I can tell you the only way that you can catch monkeypox is from guy on guy action, or the way it was originally brought into that community, guy on monkey action. Apparently in Europe, of course, there were, I'm sorry, Europeans, if I offend you, I'm sorry, but it was France. Anyway, there were orgies that involved monkeys. And that's why it is spreading like this.
How does
And
PETA feel about that?
you are apparently pretty good, but you were right that the whole elementary school thing pops out at you. So, though monkeypox has spread almost exclusively among men who have sex with men, 14,000 confirmed cases in the United States. Stop right there.
14,000.
14,000 confirmed cases in the United States. The United States
Pandemic.
has, yes, the United States has 339 million 200,000, roughly 200,000 people. And I did the numbers. 14,000 out of the current population of the United States is, um, let's see, like 1.18 times 10 to the negative 3% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an epidemic. It's not a pandemic. It's not any kind of demic. There's no demic here of any kind. But here they say health officials fear that the virus will spread beyond the sexual deviant community and into the general population. How exactly? How exactly? With elementary school and college students being the most vulnerable. Now, I can see college students.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see college students, and that I understand.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's the way AIDS happened. You know, it started with the deviant community, and then it spread into the hetero community,
Hey,
and it
I'm
became
hetero
what it
and
is.
deviant, by the way. So
Yeah. But there's only one freaking way that this could possibly spread to elementary school students.
no, and I remember seeing something along the lines of a child or children in one particular home that contracted it, and it's like, gee, I wonder how that happened because we've already established the fact that we know how it's transmitted. But and so when I see this and it says elementary schools, I'm the father of 4 girls, and when I see something like that, I get really, really angry. And I remember when this first popped up, and we all kind of joked about the fact that, oh, here we go, next pandemic, because it was a huge joke, and it's horrible to say this because I mean we got COVID. Bloody hell, almost everybody I know got COVID, and there are definitely people out there that died from COVID complications. That I'm not trying to not belittling that at all. As people die from complications of the flu and multiple other things. But when it first came out, they made such a big deal out of it. Like you said, it had what 98, 96, 98% chance of being fine, of living, surviving. But it came right before an election. And then I remember seeing charts and graphs about all of the different outbreaks that have happened. And it seems like it happens every 2 to 4 years. There's always an outbreak of something new. And now here we go. It's like they're clutching at straws. They've got nothing, but something new pops up. They're like, oh, pandemic. The U.S. declared it a pandemic. Certain states and cities are declaring it pandemics. And it's like, if I'm not mistaken, I could be 100% wrong. Please correct me if I am wrong. Like it says here, 14,000 confirmed cases, which is not even a blip on the radar. I mean, more people are killed by sharks from Sharknado than have this particular disease. It's my understanding that there are 0 deaths at this time in the United States. If I could be wrong, but do you know any more about that?
Now, from my understanding of the situation, and I could be wrong, but the smallpox vaccine kind of takes care of it, but I'm not really up to date on that quite yet. Um,
Well, my guess would be if people were dying, it would be front page news all over the place. You wouldn't be able to
oh
hide from
yeah,
it. It's like, oh, another confirmed death here or there, and I
oh
have
yeah,
heard nothing. All I've heard is the fact that this is horrible. It's gonna get us. It's gonna get us. And but everybody, there, the fact that there's a number here, and I love the fact that they put it in parentheses. There's no focus on numbers where they had numbers with COVID. They could say, oh, everybody's got it, because everybody did. And again, like the flu, it had the entire country. There's no doubt about that. And it's apparently here to stay, and it's going to keep coming back. And so numbers are on their side for that. But with this, A, transmission is ridiculously specific. And
Yes.
B, because of the ridiculously specific method of a transaction there, the numbers are minute. And so what do? And apparently what they do is they still declare it a pandemic and try to scare the hell out of people,
Yeah.
even though
You push it in
the
the
numbers
media.
aren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it gets better. It gets better. Given, and this is from the Hill, and of course, you know, the Hill is a paragon of virtue and truth. It's a liberal rag. Given that epidemiologists and public health officials, stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
What epidemiologists and what public health officials? I mean, if you're going to cite some epidemiologists and health officials, who? Who is it? Who do they work for? Is it you know, Joe Schmo from the CDC? You know, is it Dr. you know, Bob Phelps from Harvard? You know,
Like our man
who is it?
Fauci.
Yeah, yeah. Who is this? But we've already established that the number of cases are statistically non-existent. It's not that they're statistically insignificant. They're statistically non-existent. And so why do we have epidemiologists looking into something that's not an epidemic? Assuming that these epidemiologists actually exist, because I suspect that these are the same types of epidemiologists and public health officials uh, as are frequently used by the left in their stories when they cite unnamed government officials.
Right. Anybody that's ever been an official in any way, shape, or form that just happens to be on that particular paper's payroll.
Right. Or they might not exist at all. They just make this stuff up out of whole cloth and then say that it was told to them by an unnamed official. But, you know, I digress. So these public health officials are observing. And by the way, this is one of the worst written sentences that I've ever seen on a so-called professional website. Are observing and learning in real time, comma, if transmission can occur from more casual physical contact, comma, then the virus is ripe to spread into general population. Okay,
That's a horrible sentence.
it's a terrible sentence. Um, very poorly written, but I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to get into is the fact that so you've got these epidemiologists and public health care officials that may or may not exist, but certainly are not actually cited. And they're looking into whether or not this statistically non existent bug could occur from more casual physical contact. Why?
It's a
Why are
scary
they looking
sentence.
into this? Exactly. It's only to scare us because you don't if you're a true scientist, if you're a true epidemiologist, you don't look into stuff that isn't happening. All right. Now, if you had an outbreak in an elementary school, oh, heck yeah. We need to find out how this is being transmitted and why. Okay. Maybe this thing got airborne. You know, maybe it's now spread by droplets, something like that. Maybe it's now in the respiratory tract or whatever. So, yeah, we need to look at that and find out Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. But that's not happening. Kids aren't catching this. Nobody is catching this, but but gay guys and even those guys are the unsafe gay guys.
No, and that's another thing. The fact that um, the gay community as a whole and I've been reading a lot about this as well. They get lumped in and then moved around wherever the left needs them to be.
Right.
And
Hmm.
the thing is, like any other group, it's the fringe that usually cause the problems. Right, left, it doesn't matter. And for as a whole, the gay community is, they're of course going to be afraid of this as any other group would be, but this is going to hit home because this is the way it's transmitted. And so of course people no different than COVID or any other thing are going to take logical steps, and in this case very obvious steps as far as to protect yourself from it. But then you've got the far extreme group of the LGBTQ who will, I'm not going to be held back. You can't tell me what I can and can't do with my body. And there have been numerous examples of huge gatherings or groups of for the purpose of mass orgies and things like that. That
Hmm.
they're the CDC would or whoever it was, these epidemiologists and public health officials saying that, hey, this is a potential threat. It's like, well, you can't tell me what to do. It's like, wait a minute. This is the same group of people that told the entire country what to do for the past 2 years, and they shut us in our house. But something like this happens, and it's such a big deal. Now all of a sudden, you're saying they can't tell you what to do. So um, that is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I read an article last week, the week before last, something like that, where there's an area, and I can't remember for the life of me if it was San Francisco or if it was New York. There's an area known for that kind of hookup culture. And again, I want to say it was San Francisco, but that's just so cliche.
Right.
But um, the local political officials, and I think this was a city councilman, was encouraging people. No, you keep going. You keep going. You keep partying. You keep having your orgies or whatever. Do you stuff like, and it begs the question,
Why?
why? Because they need this to get out. They need it to get worse.
Well, you remember during when COVID first started, Nancy Pelosi and all them in the middle of Chinatown because
Yeah.
they don't want to label it the Chinese Wuhan virus, but we're going to stand in the middle of Chinatown and do a direct stereotype, maskless, saying no, everything's fine, and
Yeah.
it's again goes to the point. It's like, wait a minute, either it's fine or it's not fine, because it was fine for 2 seconds and then it wasn't fine, and then you're yelling at Trump because he wasn't handling it soon enough, even though you were saying everything was okay. I'm confused.
Yeah.
But again, it's I don't. This seems like it's a bit too small of a molehill to turn into a mountain. But they seem to be doing a pretty bloody good job.
They're going to try. At this point, they're desperate for anything that's going to make a splash, because they're coming up on November,
Right.
and these elections are going to crush them. And they're going to pull out as many stops as they can to cheat,
Again.
and fortify the election again. But it's only going to work in areas that they already hold. So that's not going to help them very much.
Right.
Um, but they figure if they can create enough of a crisis that maybe they can make a dent. It ain't going to
Well,
work,
no,
but
I don't think it's going to work at all, because it goes back to the point where I said I get pissed off when the liberals use political pawns, and they use everybody that they can. And in this case, it's the LGBTQ community, that where it's like, oh, it's adversely affecting them, and then it's like, what, no, what you need to don't just say that this whole group of people, this is a problem for them. What you need to, like we just spoke about, it's the people who the people who don't take precautions, the people who are foolish with who they decide to sleep with and how they decide to sleep with people, as far as if it's multiple partners in a short amount of time. And there's been some numbers on that as far as the people that have that are part of this 14,000 that have gotten the monkeypox, the number of partners that they've had in the short amount of time, like in the past 2 weeks or something, are mind blowing. And so, no, it's not the LGBTQ community. It's the ridiculously,
Right.
and I hate to use the word deviant because, again, I consider myself a deviant personally. But the people who just don't care. What's the word? The hedonistic, I guess, is if I'm using that correctly, as far as I'm going to do whatever the hell I want with my body and with those people's bodies and everybody's body, and free love and all this, and you can't tell me what to do. It's affecting them, and as these numbers show, that is a ridiculously small percentage of the community. So as long as people, whether they're gay, straight, or whatever, as long as you are careful, you're going to be okay. Now, the people that go to these weekend parties where they're doing, whatever with whomever and how many times, you're in danger. And if you decide that that's the kind of life that you want to live, then no different than when AIDS, like you said, first came on the scene. So many people just ignored it. It's like, that's not going to affect me. It's like, if you continue that lifestyle, there's a real good chance that it's going to affect you. And then, unfortunately, with AIDS, it got to the point where it doesn't matter what kind of lifestyle that you have. It's that particular disease that could affect anybody, and has. But this one, from what it looks like, unless we get some additional knowledge as far as other ways of it being transmitted from one person to another, I don't see them being able to make this as big as a deal as they think it is.
No, they're not going to. And another thing, something that you pointed out, we've learned from AIDS. We learned from AIDS. So
that's
not going to
way
affect.
too late on that. That was the stupidity that the entire country, entire world had as far as ignorance to AIDS. I mean, that's inexcusable. But we absolutely did learn.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen again, especially with that community. That made such an impact on that community that the vast majority of them, they ain't going to play that. Some of them, some of their still surviving, some of their friends died from that. Some of them still have it, and so they're not going to play around with this kind of stuff. Like you said, it's the fringe folks. But one thing that I, wanted to point out from this story is the very next paragraph. They were talking about why children are so susceptible. Is that if this can be spread by casual contact, kids play around real close to each other all the time, and they wrestle on the playground and so on and so forth, and you just can't stop that. To try to stop that would be futile, while at the same time they're saying y'all need to be wearing your masks in school, and if you don't, we're calling the cops.
And pouring sand in all the skate parks and making sure that all the playgrounds are locked down so nobody can play. It's like, you can't stop kids from being kids. It's like, that's what you just did, Jack.
Yeah, that's what you tried to do with COVID, but now you're telling us because it's monkeypox we can't do that?
My kids forgot what the outside looked like. I have to escort them outside into the daylight still. I mean, it's going to take a really long time to get over this whole mindset of, we're inside, we can only be inside. So no.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
But there's also the thing that jumped out at you as, if a kid does get this,
there's a reason.
There's only one damn way it happened.
And they better be investigating the hell out of that reason, because I tell you what, man, there's a special level of hell for the people that mess with kids. There's a special level of hell.
Get a rope.
And man,
Get a rope.
no, no.
Because this is something that they're trying to push. And this has been on their bucket list for a long time. So way back in the 70s, the academics were talking about how minor attracted persons are just an alternative lifestyle, and they've been marginalized and
Demonized.
demonized and discriminated against and all that, and we should be inclusive and all this kind of, and Jack.
No, I've been reading a lot about that lately, and we've been talking about that for a good amount of time. It's been slowly happening over decades, but I mean it's been at a more rapid pace recently. But the chipping away at rights, freedoms, but also the instituting of the immoral, making what is not okay okay. If you want to do it, if it feels good, then fine. Health be damned, or this be damned. If it makes you happy, then it's okay. Which, honestly, my perspective has changed a lot about that. I'm a big believer in, you know what, you do you, but don't pound on my door and hand me a flag and expect me to cheer for you. No, but this whole there are limitations to where I believe in, you do you, and that's fine as long as you're not hurting anybody. But this trying to normalize this, which they have been slowly just kind of just chipping away at it, and now to the point where my mind is blown on this, because there's a homosexual community on TikTok that I follow that are a conservative group, and they get all kinds of hell. And this is one of the things that really pisses me off, is you talk about a group of people that is so ridiculously intolerant. There is nothing more intolerant than a liberal against another person who should be a liberal. Whether it's a liberal that's upset with an African American for being conservative, or whether it's a liberal upset with a homosexual for being a conservative. It's like, you can't be a conservative. You don't understand what they've done to your community. It's like, Jack, you're talking to this person about their community like you have a clue. You don't know. It's their community, not yours. I'll be damned if you're going to, hell, I don't know. I barely even know what the hell my community is. So I'm not going to tell somebody else what their community is like. But you sitting there saying, it's like, no, you need to toe the line. You need to do this. And if you don't, you're a this, that, and that. The horrible things that they've said or hell, examples of police officers, videos of police officers being berated and being called, Uncle Toms and things like that if they're African American, and now it's happening with the homosexual community on these groups on TikTok, where they're calling it out for what it is. It's like, look, okay, we're homosexual. This is a life that we've chosen. This is how we live, and that's that. Fine. That's who they are. That's the way that they want to live. I prefer women. They prefer same sex. Okay, again, you be you. But now this community, because the liberal machine has lumped a group of people together and used them as a pawn. They love to do this. They take those pedophiles and they try to lump it in with the LGBTQ community, and the homosexual community is like, no, don't even try. They're not with us. Don't try to hijack our community for your purposes. And now I think it's coming to light that a lot of quote unquote communities, whether it be race, religion, or otherwise, or sexual preference, are starting to realize that, whoa, we've been being told this whole time that because we are this way, this is how we think, and we all need to think this way. And if we don't, then we get damned and called out and insulted and berated. And now something like this, which is, even though they've been chipping away a little bit at a time, it's kind of been sneaking up on us. Now it's kind of smacks us in the face, where this group has been banned and shut down on TikTok multiple times for calling out groomers. And you can't even say the word anymore, apparently. And again, I digress. You get me started on this topic. I tell you what, again, being the father of 4 girls, Jack, I'll go to jail. I'll go to jail. Okay. No, you touch my babies, you're gonna wish the police get a hold of you before I find you. That's just how it's gonna be. But again, the liberals trying to lump them in with a homosexual community, and them just saying, no, this is not okay. This is not just a group of people choosing a lifestyle. No, now you are pushing something on a child, and no different than the people saying that a 4-year-old can decide what gender they are. No, no, they can't. My 4-year-old can't pick out their clothes. It's you can't put a decision like that. I mean, hell, when you turn 18 and you get, all of a sudden you're an adult, all of these decisions upon you, you're like, wow. But you're saying that a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, can all of a sudden determine what gender they are? Hell no. And damn it, I'm sorry, you got me going on that one. But to sum up, this is another perfect example. Liberals using the LGBTQ community, trying to lump the pedophiles in with it, and the community saying, no, I reject this. This is wrong, and don't even try to put it in. And because there are groups that are standing up saying that this is wrong, they're getting demonized, saying that, oh, well, if you feel that way, you must be a racist, bigot, transphobe, this phobe, whatever insult that they throw on somebody who doesn't agree. And now that that's happening, some of these people who have been liberal or Democrat for so long are starting to realize, like, whoa, I thought this was the tolerant side. I thought these people were the ones that were supposed to accept me for who I am. But you've told me the way I'm supposed to think. I disagree with you. And now I'm evil. I'm the one that should be demonized
because you're not towing the line.
Bingo.
They're not towing the line.
And a lot of eyes are being opened, and it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. I think the thing that kicked this all off was, oddly enough, Trump. So Hillary was supposed to win.
Oh, no doubt.
She was supposed to win, and she was supposed to, with the other leaders in the world, usher in the new Great Reset. And that was supposed to be the beginning of their socialist utopia, and all waving hands and singing kumbaya and all that kind of garbage. But she didn't. She didn't win. And so now they were stuck with a period of time where they couldn't push their agenda. And then after that period of time, they A, had to cheat, and B, they had to put in the biggest potato-headed mush-brain moron who is currently he was a potato-headed mush-brain moron when he was sentient. Okay.
I just think
Rush Limbaugh used to call him the dumbest man in the Senate.
And then he called him the dumbest vice president.
Yes. And now he's not only the dumbest guy, but he's also got Alzheimer's disease or whatever dementia. So he's demented along with being a moron.
And if you call out any of the horrible missteps, like not knowing where he is or how to finish a sentence, which
I had to put a jacket on.
Yeah, I saw that. But you call that out and you insult him, and it's like, oh, now you're ageist, or you don't like old people. It's like, wait a minute. I remember when front page news, when Trump misspelled a word in a tweet, and it was, oh my gosh, you see, what was he trying to say here? What is this word? What is it? It's like, this is news. But this man is shaking hands with invisible people. He doesn't know where he is half the time. I honestly feel sorry for him at this point. I have never had any love for Joe Biden. He's been in the Senate for just eternity. Nobody should be in politics that long, but he has always been a prick, and I cannot stand him. Never could. At this point now, I feel so sorry for him. I really do. With all my heart, I feel sorry for him because this man is being manipulated. He doesn't know where the hell he is. It is sad to watch. It is painful to watch. And he is absolutely a puppet at the moment. And I feel bad for the man.
I can honestly say I don't feel even a little, and I should, as a Christian, I should feel bad for this guy. I don't. Again, that might be the grumpy old man thing. I don't know. But I'd rather be a grumpy old man than a mush-brained, demented guy. I mean, yeah, he's being taken advantage of. There's no question that the latest theory is that Susan Rice is pulling the strings now. Obama's former person.
Yeah, no,
I can't remember what she does.
I remember her.
Yeah. So she's
Benghazi.
allegedly being the one that's pulling strings, and that's distinctly probable. I mean,
Honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter. I've seen a bunch of stories. This person, that person. The bottom line is anybody with half a brain can realize this man is not acting for himself.
oh no,
This
yeah,
man is
no,
not thinking for himself. This man is not making decisions for this country. That is not happening. There
yeah.
there's no way he cannot. And anybody who's watched any of his speeches, and you don't have to cherry pick, you don't have to edit out this or that, because I've seen
Mm-mm,
so many people online. It's
mm-mm.
like, oh well, you're doing creative editing. It's like, no, just watch a whole pick any. I will let you pick any one of his speeches ever
Yep,
recently in recent years,
yeah.
and during his presidency. Let's put it that way. And you tell me, sound mind. You know, no, sir. You can't argue that. And so he's not in control. So whoever is in control, whether it's Rice, or anybody else in the former Obama administration, it it doesn't matter. I'd love to see the curtain fall and see who's actually behind this whole thing. I don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime, but
I don't know, maybe not. I As far as the future, the political future of the country,
God help us.
Washington isn't going to fix itself. The states are going to have to fix it. And the good news is we're set up for that. We're set up for that. And the blue states, which I do not believe there's such a thing as a blue state.
Blue cities.
There are blue cities, and even those, not so much, because as I pointed out in a previous episode, um, Detroit has to cheat for the Democrats to stay in power. And if you got to cheat in Detroit, I don't know that you hold anything.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's something that's always I've always been confused about, because with some of the friends I have who happen to be ridiculously liberal, when I point out the fact, it's like, just look at the cities that have been traditionally run by Democrats, and in some cases run by Democrats for several decades,
Yeah.
and look at those cities where they are now. Look at the cities that have been run by real conservatives, not Republicans, because I don't consider Republicans conservatives, but actual conservatives, which there are few. This is what some people don't realize: is there's a ton of Republicans out there. There's very few conservatives. And then compare the cities. How can a place like Detroit, Chicago, places like that justify continually voting for their liberal leaders when
Mhm.
whatever promises they're making, which I'm not following any of these elections, so I can't tell you what promises they're making, but what the hell can they say? It's like, hey, vote for me. It's not going to suck as bad next time. I don't know. I don't know what they're saying, but the fact is, it's like, how can you not want to vote for a change? I mean, honestly, even if who have mostly, I have voted for a Democrat before, but who have mostly voted for Republicans, almost exclusively, we're in a situation where where I am right now, if it was like Detroit, if it was like Chicago, if it was like current New York City, I would go, you know what? Now it's time for a change. I'm going to vote for whoever is not in office right
Right.
now.
Right.
Whoever is in power is obviously doing it wrong. So we're going to vote, even if that is not my party, that's not my person, that's not my group. What's going on now is wrong. Let's let somebody else have a shot, because this ain't working. So
Yeah. But we're seeing after Trump won and after they cheated, they realized that they had to accelerate their schedule because their schedule had been pushed back 4 years.
mm-hmm.
So what they had to do across the board, from the federal government on down, all of their Democrat buddies, all the way down, they had to start boiling the frog a little bit quicker. And because of that, just that fact alone, they boiled it a little bit too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And now the frog is woken up, and the frog don't want to be in the pot anymore. And even liberals, like two perfect examples. Perfect examples. One is Lori Lightfoot, Chicago. Nobody uh, is safe in Chicago. Everybody in Chicago knows what's going down. The police are starting to quit. Medical
That works in their
examiners are
favor,
starting
though.
to quit. Yeah. Well,
Police quitting causes more chaos, which causes more people to, need the government's help.
yeah, but if you can't control them, then you got a problem. You've got to be able to control the thugs. And if she can't control the thugs, then there's a big problem. Well, it turns out that now, and this came out 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe. Uh, guess who's leaving? The Bears.
What?
Yes, the Bears are leaving Chicago. It's a done deal.
Oh,
It's a done
no.
deal. The Bears have left Chicago. They are moving to a suburb that has a much lower crime rate because they can't get people to go.
Are they still going to be the quote-unquote Chicago Bears?
They'll still be the quote unquote Chicago Bears,
Okay.
but
It's
they're
like the Dallas
moving out of Chicago.
Cowboys that
Lori
aren't in
Lightfoot
Dallas.
was begging them to stay. But I mean, but it was way too late because they were like, "Hey, contract's already signed, and even if it wasn't, we ain't sticking around because nobody will come to watch us play
Well,
because it's unsafe."
in Lori Lightfoot's defense, who's going to come watch the Bears play anyway?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Not since 82, 84.
Oh, wait,
Right.
just blurt it out.
And then, New York City. So, our rhino governor, who has become a pseudo born again conservative,
While the wind blows in that direction, yeah.
while the wind has been blowing in that direction, he has been busing illegal immigrants into New York City and Washington, D.C., which I think is fantastic. He should have started this a long time ago.
Yeah. And I fully believe it started out as a stunt. When he first said it, I was like, BS, man, you're not going to do it. But then when the White House called him out on it and said, it's just a stunt, I was like, man, now the man has to step up.
Now
He
you
has
got to
to
do it. Our capital is taller than yours. So, for those of you who don't understand what that means, the Capitol building in Austin, Texas is actually taller than the Capitol building in the United States, and
By
rightfully so.
design.
Rightfully so, by design, because we're better in every single way.
Yeah.
Better. So, I digress. So, they did a man on the they were doing man on the street interviews. A lot of outlets were doing man on the street interviews in New York, and New Yorkers are sick of this crap.
Oh, yeah,
All of a sudden they're feeling the same pain that we've been feeling for decades. So starting to break up.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Can you
Say something.
something?
That's pretty good. Did you bump anything?
No, I haven't moved.
Okay. So, but yeah, so this is even the blue cities ain't as blue as they used to be because these guys have had to boil the frog a little bit too quickly, and now all these people who are theoretically rational people have thought, holy crap, this is what I've been voting for. This isn't what I was just getting my free stuff. That's why I voted for this guy. He was giving me free stuff. Now he's giving other people free stuff. He's giving other people my free stuff. Like there was an article today. The illegals that are getting off the buses in New York are being given free health care and free cell phones. Hey, New York asked, yeah, New York asked for help from the federal government. There you go. There's your help from the federal government.
I stand with New York in this policy. This is
Absolutely.
brilliant. I love it.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
Yes.
Now, I heard that they got invited to come down here and look at the border because they're complaining about a couple hundred being sent by bus, and it's like, do you know the numbers that are coming across the border on a daily basis? Because they tend to, it's not that bad, and everything's fine. It's like you don't even know the Democratic because there, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there are Democrats here in Texas, but the Democrats along the border, they're fed up, and
Mhm.
they're like, look, this is an invasion force. There are
Mhm.
numbers coming across the border we've never seen, and you got these idiots who don't live anywhere near Texas who are like, well, these are people that are just wanting to find freedom. It's like, no, no, these are people that have heard and been told, and yes, believe it or not, by Soros's group and other people that, hey, come here, we will give you free stuff.
Yep.
Because if you come here and we give you free stuff, you will vote for us for eternity. And
Well,
we
that
will
was the plan.
always be in control because they know damn well that they will not win any election fair and square. It will not happen. And I'm going to be real interested to see what happens come November because they literally, it's like you said, they had to boil the frog too quick. They they were in a position because of what Trump getting elected. The Republicans didn't think he's going to get elected. The Democrats didn't think he's going to get elected. Everybody thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke. I did not vote for him in the primaries because I'm like, seriously. Um, but then he stepped in and did the things that he said he was going to do, and
Yep.
everybody's just blown away. And like you said, it completely threw off their timetable because Hillary was the chosen one. The Democrats knew she was going to win. The Republicans knew she was going to win. And then this guy throws in his hat that they're like, who the hell is he? He's just a joke. Don't worry about him. Boom. Steps in for 4 years, completely throws everything that they've been working on into a cocked hat. And so now, like you said, they're scrambling, trying to get things going, trying to move it as quick as they can. And they're like, oh hell, we need we need to do what we can. We're going to lose this election. Call everybody. Tell everybody. There's videos. There's sworn affidavits. But and I love how many of my liberal friends have said, well, obviously that's all fake and it's not real because it wasn't proven in a court of law. It's like, well, you don't realize, Jack, is it wasn't even seen in a court. None of it
Yep.
was. Brought that up a
Yep.
couple times. People are like, oh, that's because there's no evidence. No, there was plenty of evidence. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. Nobody would look. Nobody would do anything. There's there's a reason why Soros and all of the other liberals pushed so money into the judicial system. And Trump worked as quick as he could to get as many conservative, or who he thought were conservative, judges in there. But bottom line is, it's still just ridiculously thick of liberals, and they're not. Nobody's going to touch this with a 10-foot pole for whatever reason. It could be the same reason the Epstein story. But bottom line is that it was obviously fraudulent, third world country style. They got away with it, but in doing so, they they've shown their hand. Can they get away with doing it again? I would argue that they possibly could because again, no one was held to account. No one had to no judge looked at the evidence. Nobody got indicted. Nothing happened. So why not do it another time? But just in case, we're going to start bringing in a fresh set of voters and slowly start making it to where whether you're legal or not, you can vote in certain cities, certain states, and they mask that with, oh, it's just for local elections or just for school board stuff or just for the, and they're living here, so of course they need to have a voice. It's like, well, first of all, they're not legally living here, so
Mhm.
I want you to go ahead and sneak on into Mexico. Tell me how they treat you. If they're going to give you 3 hots and a cot and say, you know what, you can go ahead and vote in our election, because that ain't happening.
Well, unfortunately, that's where the interview got cut off. Apparently, uh, Nate is having some technical problems with his home system. So, but still, that was a great conversation, and I love a good conversation. So, we're definitely going to have Nate back. Y'all, thanks for watching. Again, if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on pretty much every social media: Getter, Gab, Minds, um, at let's see, Getter, Gab, Minds. I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two, but it's at Doc Bryant just about everywhere. I'm actually even on Twitter at Doc Bryant Actual. Uh, um, let's see. Oh, the email is docbryantshow at zohomail.com. That's ZOHO mail.com. And you can find the Doc Bryant Podcast Show anywhere you can find podcasts except Apple iTunes. All right. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to do it again. Bye.